losing control. I'm seeing red. Watch you rise, watch you fall. Now I'm about to break. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fixed Fights podcast with Kurt and Ben. As always, I'm Kurt. I'm here with my main man, Ben. What's going on this week, dude?
Not a lot. Chilling. Had a week off of MMA. Feeling pretty energized for like a blockbuster card. Does it feel like a Conor McGregor fight week to you? I'm not sure if it entirely does to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of like contemplating the same thoughts. If personally for me, it feels big, but as far as like, I don't know. I feel like they haven't been pumping it out. Have you heard if we're gonna get a press conference this week? I haven't even heard about that.
I can look into that. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if they'll do the full like panel at the same time, but hopefully. I know in the past for some of these big fights they've done like one guy at a time, but hopefully they do a full like, headliner, co-headliner, third fight down from the card, 6 guys up there at the same time so they can all, be involved. But I don't know. It feels. Nothing is ever going to feel the same as when like McGregor fought Aldo, for example, or the second Diaz fight. Those were like peak, and it doesn't quite feel like that, but it does feel like a big fight week.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a big fight week. And this card is awesome. Super pumped about it. But before we talk about the card and break down that, we were off last week and we did miss a bit of big news. And that big news is in the heavyweight division. I want to get your thoughts on this. Francis Ngannou is not going to be fighting Derek Lewis, at least not just yet. It came out last week. Dana White has scheduled a bout between Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane for the interim heavyweight title in August. I believe that is, correct me if I'm wrong, either like August 12th or August 7th, something like that, in Houston, Texas. Now there's a lot to unravel with this story, right? Because from all accounts that I saw, it seemed as though Francis Ngannou would have been ready in September, which is only a month later. He also won the title, but a couple months ago, so it's not like he's been off for, a year plus. I mean, I think we've always kind of had problems with how the interim titles were divvied out. And we honestly haven't seen too many of them recently, but I mean, you look at like the Peter Yan situation with Aljamain Sterling, like that would have probably been a better candidate for an interim title as opposed to this. Like this one kind of makes no sense. What are your thoughts and reads on this?
I think the most obvious one that most people agree with is that this is some bullshit, right? I think that's like the top take. This is a callback to, I want to say it was maybe like 2013, 2014, 2015. Around that time, I feel like interim titles in the UFC were just like way out of hand. They were giving them to everybody just so they could put a belt on the poster and then they could sell a future champion versus champion fight. Like you said, they had kind of gotten away from that practice, and I think we as fans all appreciated it because it made the championship fights feel a little bit bigger. But this one is just like, there's no sporting justification for this, right? There's no reason why this should happen. Like if the UFC is anything similar to close to a meritocracy, right? Not saying that, right, Cyril Gane and or Derek Lewis are not at the top of the division. But yeah, if you even just, it's some bullshit, right? So if we even look at like, yeah, Francis Ngannou won the belt in March of this year. So, 3 months ago at this point, 4 months ago, I should say, late March. So about 3 months ago, to put an interim title, especially like you said, all reports showed that, right, he was offered that August date. He said, no, but I can do September. And I think he accepted Derek Lewis in September. Yeah. And they just still said, fuck it. Like, we have to have a title fight apparently then. Like, I don't know. I assume it's just because they are scrambling for pay-per-view headliner options, but it's still a shitty way to go about it.
I mean,
who else could they have put in that headline?
Well, you have
in
Amanda
that
Nunes
headliner?
defending against Juliana Pena on this card. Here's another question.
They
How
could do
much?
that. Sorry.
That's what I'm saying. It's a great fight. Amanda Nunes is I would say widely recognized, even by I think casual fans. People know who she is. I mean, how much do you think an interim title fight between Cyril Gane and Derek Lewis is going to boost pay-per-view buys?
Not at all.
Right.
Like, or
That's
at least not.
exactly.
At
Not
least
substantially.
hasn't Nunes headlined pay-per-views before?
She has.
Nuna, they put Felicia Spencer out there
Right.
in the
Exactly.
main event. I'm not saying that was UFC 250. I'm not saying that was obviously like one of the year's best-selling pay-per-views.
Oh, but
But
she's done it
do
before.
they think Cyril Gane and Derek Lewis are going to pull him in? Like, and Amanda Nunes has only gotten bigger since then. It's a
Right.
little, not a little, quite disrespectful, I would say, to her, to have her in the co-main to this like bullshit interim fight.
Yeah, and also it's an interim fight. You know, another theory could be they are in Houston. Obviously, Derek Lewis has a connection to Houston, so maybe they wanted that. I
But
don't
they
know,
would
man.
sell out. They could sell out that arena no matter what. They're gonna
Regardless.
fucking, yeah. That's some man. I don't think I had really appreciated until now how much of a disrespect this is to Amanda Nunes.
Well, and now you look at it, right? So you put this interim title fight for August. Who knows how this fight is going to go? It could be a quick fight with the power of Derek Lewis, or we've seen Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane is, and we can talk a little bit about him in a second, but he's super patient. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. If this is a 5-round grueling war, when are you going to book this Francis Ngannou fight? What if
Yeah,
these guys are not ready until the end of the year or early next year? Now you got Ngannou, who was coming off this beautiful story, winning the title, from Cameroon. He's got this excellent backstory. And now you got him, he's also one of the most exciting fighters in the world, sitting on the sidelines for close to a year, or maybe even a year if it gets pushed back that much. I don't know. It merely makes no sense.
yeah, you're losing so much promotional steam by this. Like exactly what you're talking about. This could be months and months and months. Ngannou from on like the absolute precipice of I think being like a huge breakout star. How long are they going to put him on the shelf? Especially if Derek Lewis wins, he's a guy who constantly is begging for more time off in between fights, and suddenly he'll actually have some leverage to ask for that because he'll be an interim champion if he wins. So yeah, it not to mention like what happens with John Jones, what happens with Stipe Miocic, like bananas. It's really poor planning, and I think like I didn't see anybody like really excited about this interim title fight. Did you? Is
I
anybody like sweet? There's an interim title on the line.
I saw no
Yeah, of
no one excited about it. And I'm a big Derek
course
Lewis
not.
fan. I mean, I love the idea of Derek Lewis fighting for an interim title, right? Like let's say Francis Ngannou is hurt, can't fight, something going on, but these circumstances, it makes absolutely zero sense. I was hoping, praying somehow that maybe they signed this and Dana was going to get us back and be like, all right, Francis Ngannou, John Jones. But that doesn't even, and here's the thing too. It's like John Jones now, it seems like he's even forgotten. He's like at the end of this line. They're going to do Ngannou Gane versus Lewis, and then the winner versus Ngannou, and then the winner versus Stipe, and we have no idea what's going on with John Jones. Man, a couple months ago, the heavyweight division seemed so just laid out, and now this just puts a whole weird kink into what the plans seemed like they were going to be. Um, I guess we could briefly talk about the fight. I thought Cyril Gane looked excellent against Alexander Volkov. Again, like I said before, he's just super patient, very cerebral. He's a great counter striker. When he does want to let his hands go and move forward, he's also excellent. Um, I like the stylistic matchup because obviously Derek Lewis has the power to end the fight at any time. But we've seen in his last couple fights that he's turned into a more patient fighter, and he will wait and pick his shots. Now, this could turn into a stare fest, which is another thing that's kind of weird, right? Because it's not like Derek Lewis is fighting some other like monster puncher, right? Cyril Gane is very cerebral, so I don't know. This could totally backfire and be a very, very shitty fight, or it could be exciting. Do you have any reads on this early?
Early reads is I think Gon is the rightful favorite. And I do think a big part of that has to do with, he's still pretty young in his career. I don't know how many kickboxing fights he had. But he seems quite durable at this point in his career. So yes, Lewis has like the power to shut the lights off on anybody, but you look back, like he couldn't put away Ilir Latifi. He couldn't put away Blagoy Ivanov, which no fucking shame in that.
Yeah.
Obviously he could not put away Francis Ngannou. So like, yeah, like Derek Lewis is like a big one hitter quitter type of fighter, but if that one hit gets just to the fence and it's not a home run, he's kind of fucked after that. So my early read is that this could be bad. And then like Cyril Gane, as good as he is, we've talked about it before. He's a guy who, if he can safely but barely win, he's going to take the safe route rather than win in a knockout but have risk involved. So if he's just a little bit better than Derek Lewis, we have a potential of a boring fight that Cyril Gane wins but comes out looking worse because fans don't appreciate that style typically.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. Just weird all around. I'm pretty, again, it's funny. We were kind of talking about the prelim primer before this that we do with Daniel Vreeland. And I did the prelim primer for Cyril Gane's UFC debut. So I've been a bit hip to Cyril Gane since obviously his debut when he was, I think, like 3-0 or 4-0 or something. So it's kind of cool to see him at this moment. I'm very, very high on his skills, but yeah, just all around a very weird turn of events. I actually like how he matches up against Francis Ngannou even. And, they have that pretty cool backstory, but it just seems rushed. It seems very weird. Maybe there's some sort of, I don't know, dispute behind the scenes. Honestly, probably there's some sort of dispute behind the scenes where Dana's just doing his usual flex. Just, I don't know, man.
For sure there's a dispute, but for sure they did. I mean, you saw what Francis Ngannou's manager posted about
I like that, by the way. That was awesome.
Yeah, why are there not more managers like that in MMA who are actually like fighting, really fighting for their client, even if it goes head to head with the UFC? They're like, fuck you, Francis Ngannou is bigger than you, is basically their stance, which I appreciate. I think this is all like backdoor posturing, because obviously, like I said at the top, there's no like sporting explanation for this happening.
Yeah, very weird, but I mean, we'll see how it plays out. August 7th, maybe.
August 7th, dude.
Oh, okay.
Silver lining though, if Derek Lewis is a UFC champion, like
I know, it would be awesome.
Gonna not make me smile. I'm not gonna not love that, even as silly as it is. It's like, fuck, this guy like made it. Like he did it. I would love to see him on every fucking talk show possible with toting around that UFC belt and telling jokes.
Agreed. I guess one last question before we move on. We can answer this quick. Do you have a problem with an interim title being over an actual UFC title?
In this case,
like fight card wise.
In this case, absolutely, because like we said, Amanda Nunes is the fucking female GOAT. She's headlined pay-per-views before. In this case, for sure. Deserving. I'm trying to think of another instance where the interim title felt like a bit like, wasn't Yoel Romero and Robert Whittaker won? I believe that was for an interim title, because that could be right. Luke Rockhold might have been. I can't recall. If it's like a big fight like that, I would have been fine with putting that over, say, a Valentina Shevchenko, like Liz Carmouche, like co-main event. But as a rule, maybe no. But for sure here, it's just so disrespectful to Amanda Nunes. And I think she's I'm more excited about that. I don't know. I have a strong sense that this Cyril Gane Derek Lewis fight is going to be a stinker, but
yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. I mean, we'll see. All right, let's jump into UFC 264. Obviously, it's the big event of the weekend. And honestly, I'm pretty glad that there's no other events this weekend, so we can kind of center our talk and energy around this event, because it is big. If you look up and down the card, there is a lot to like on this card, and obviously nothing more to like than the main event, the trilogy between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. And I gotta say, man, looking at it from both of these guys, there is a lot on the line for both of them. A lot on the line. So let me ask you this. Looking at where they are in their careers, who do you think has more on the line going into this fight? Dustin Poirier or Conor McGregor?
It's a great question because for sure McGregor is on, a skid, right? For sure, I think my initial reaction is like, oh, McGregor, because he has, in a sense, more to lose in general, right? He has a bigger kind of empire and a bigger status in MMA, and you feel like, oh, he's lost so much recently. He only has this one win over Donald Cerrone recently that not a lot of people felt like paid attention to or cared about or even remember. But then you realize that it's Conor McGregor, and he's one of the few people in this sport that can lose, and his like star power doesn't. It's been diminishing for sure, and we've been talking about it since the old podcast that it's like his star power is dying for sure.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, but I think that just goes to show you we've been talking about, oh, this guy's going to go away soon or like be less relevant for years and years and years, and all he's shown us is that he's such a big star, such a big personality, and like far and away the most important fighter in MMA right now, that a loss does not ruin him. Fuck, he got his ass kicked against Dustin Poirier, and he might even be a betting favorite now or some shit.
Currently,
or close to
he is the slight underdog.
Like slight.
Very slight.
We're gonna talk about the fight, but like he got his ass handed to him, and people are dying to see the rematch. Or I guess it's the trilogy, but most fans don't even remember their first fight. He got his ass handed to him against Habib, like all these things. He's a guy who has proven time and time again that he doesn't need to win to stay relevant. Dustin Poirier is like the hardcore MMA fan favorite, right? He's always going to have that base, but in terms of a bigger audience, like these two fights are the absolute biggest of his career. He could, if he wins here, he catapults himself into another big fight, presumably against Charles Oliveira, for even more money. If he loses here, I don't know. It's hard for me to see Poirier in like huge money fights unless he can finagle himself into a Nate Diaz fight. So to answer your question in a super long-winded way, I think Poirier has more to lose because a win is much more important for his like future paydays and future opportunities, whereas McGregor's going to get those no matter what.
Yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth on this one too. I've been thinking about it a lot. You bring up a lot of good points. And the thing about Conor is I think even if he loses this fight, I think he will always have two fights in his back pocket, at least one. And that one is the Nate Diaz trilogy. I also think that he probably has a Jorge Masvidal fight in his back pocket as well, because I think that one makes sense for a lot of different reasons. But I still, for some reason, I still kind of lean towards Conor. Mm-hmm. And the reason is like and a lot of us just feel like he is like a championship fighter, right? Like he should be fighting for titles, and obviously he thinks he's the best in the world, yada, yada, yada. But I feel like this fight is finally like, we've kind of been building to that point where is he an elite fighter? Is he not an elite fighter? And I think this is the fight that we're finally going to probably get that clearance, right? Where it's going to be like, all right, if he loses, like Conor's probably not fighting for another title. Conor is probably not going to be viewed as, one of the best in the world anymore. A guy that should be fighting for titles and will be fighting for titles. I mean, the last time he fought for a title was what, 2018 against Habib? Mm-hmm. And that was even like a stretch that he should have got that title fight. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I feel like there is so much on the line for Dustin, but I don't know, man. I think that Conor, it's just like a lot of people I think are kind of at wit's end with him and have been at wit's end for him. And I think if he loses here, obviously it's not the nail in the coffin for him, but at least him fighting at the highest level for belts, I think it could be dashed if he loses here.
Well, not to play devil's advocate, but totally to play devil's advocate. Think of how good he is, though, at controlling the narrative. Like he led us to believe that the only reason he lost to Dustin Poirier is because Poirier used like a shin kick and McGregor wasn't prepared for it. Like he's so good at making us think he still has it, even though like the performance, if you objectively watch that fight, if I was an alien and had no idea who McGregor was or Dustin Poirier was going into that fight, had no idea of their history, you would think this McGregor guy is really speedy, but he got his ass kicked in a round and a half. But he's so good at controlling the narrative. But I do agree with you that like for me as a hardcore fan, like I've kind of made up how I feel about McGregor in general, but how he does in this performance is going to tell me a ton about like where he's at athletically, like as a competitor. Never mind how relevant he is in the world, but if he gets his ass kicked again, it's going to be hard for me to imagine him as an elite lightweight moving forward. In this, if he gets his ass kicked in the same way, I should say.
Right. Let me ask you this though: if Conor loses here, I agree with you. He's always been able to mold the narrative and change the narrative. But if he loses here, can he really even change the narrative anymore?
Yeah.
Right?
No,
like, you know what I'm saying? I still feel like there's some sort of like, and again, the flame is dying, but there's some sort of magic there still where he's able to shape and change and keep us,
right.
You know,
well,
with that hope that he's still that championship level fighter. And I feel like if he loses, it's gone. Again, the career is not gone. There's still going to be big fights, but him being an elite championship level fighter, I think it's gone.
Yeah. I will say though, flip side of that. So I'm with you. I think for people in the know, if McGregor goes out there and doesn't show, like, not to get too far off topic here, but I think the second Nate Diaz fight is like, even though he didn't get the finish there, and it's not maybe his most iconic win, but that is peak. That shows why Conor McGregor actually is an elite fighter. The adjustments he made in that Nate Diaz fight, truly being super undersized, like changing how he approaches fight. He had to take the foot off the gas for stretches of that fight. That showed me, fuck, this McGregor guy, yes, he talks a big game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but he's clearly like a world-class elite championship level fighter. And then obviously the Eddie Alvarez win, incredible. But I really think about that second Nate Diaz fight where he'd solidified in my head, he's not all talk at all. He's like really, really fucking good. If he can have a similar performance against Poirier, like really change his approach and outsmart and win this fight, then like for me, it's game back on again almost.
Yeah,
I'm like
agreed.
suddenly really, really excited about McGregor. So, and yeah, like as we've been saying, if he loses, it's kind of solidified the exact opposite in my head, at least.
The more we talk about it, the more I'm really, really into this fight. Because again, like, then I'm thinking, I'm like, well, Dustin Poirier, I mean, dude, he's got so much on the line too, right? Like you said, like if Dustin wins, he's gonna fight for the title. I think Dustin, I think you could agree, I think Dustin should be the champion right now. Charles is the rightful champion, but I think that first fight,
I mean,
I should say the rematch should have been for the title, right?
I mean, yeah, I love Charles Oliveira, but a win over Michael Chandler, who was 1-0 in the UFC, should not equal a title.
Then again, Dustin, if he loses this fight, like that lightweight division is so stacked. Is he going to be able to get another title shot? He could go down as possibly the greatest fighter to never win a true UFC title. He was the interim champion, but as far as winning the undisputed title, he's never done it. And his resume is just absolutely insane. Yeah, I think, dude, that's what's so good about this fight. There is so many just huge, huge stakes on both sides for these guys. But let's not kid ourselves, dude. Conor looked really, really good early in that fight. He landed some big, big shots that have put away guys before. So again, testament to Dustin Poirier's resilience and his chin. But he just could not. He didn't. The big glaring thing was he could not adjust to those leg kicks. Right, Poirier was just chewing his legs up, and again, going into that second round, it paid dividends. But early on, I thought Conor looked really, really good. You can say what you want about the stance. Conor was just very, we've seen Conor in his career just always light on his feet, moving around, bouncing around. And in this fight, he came out with like a weird, like, I don't know, like boxing heavy stance, and Poirier just, ate apart his legs. So I think that's got to be the most interesting thing to me in this fight is how is Conor going to change? I think it's going to be more of how can Conor adapt. Because I think Poirier actually has a really good style to beat Conor. He's tough as hell on the feet. He's well-rounded. He's a great boxer. He's got insane cardio. Whereas Conor, it's like we've seen Conor kind of break before, right? We now saw Conor get his legs chewed apart. What do you think? What adjustments do you think Conor has to make to be successful in this fight?
I think, and I've been kind of beating this drum since their first fight. I'll repost the video I did breaking down how their first fight went on our YouTube channel. But I think McGregor, for sure, the leg kicks, and you bring up a really good point about McGregor used to be a little bit lighter on his feet. I think he cannot, I'll touch on that here in a second, but McGregor cannot think that it all depends on defending the leg kick. And I think he's smarter than that. Because if you really watch that fight, yes, Poirier he attacked with more weapons, right? The leg kick did like slow McGregor down for sure to a degree. Dustin Poirier also won the very first exchange of that fight, which was just straight boxing with a check right hook. And he landed that check right hook on McGregor throughout the round and a half. Of course, that check right hook was easier to land with him landing leg kicks on McGregor to slow him down, with him threatening takedowns to make McGregor think about things. For sure, all those things contributed to it. But if you really watch that fight, so much of it revolved around the actual boxing exchanges. So to get to your actual question, how does McGregor, what changes do I want to see, man? Let's if we look down McGregor's career, what happened to the guy that was bopping around against Dennis Seaver or Dustin Poirier the very first time they fought? He was almost a movement-based fighter,
Yes.
really karate style, light on his feet, like a pressure fighter at his absolute best. But he was using movement to pressure guys against the cage, where he would do either a wheel kick if they go to his right, or a big left hand if they go to his left. A pretty simple game, but he was at least the skill that was underlying McGregor's game back in those days was his movement and ability to stay balanced on his feet. It helped him defend takedowns, all that good stuff. This version of McGregor, and you said Poirier has a good style to beat McGregor, and I think he has a great style to beat this version of McGregor, yes, which is a guy who fights just a heavyweight slugger almost. For sure, he's showing good technique in the boxing exchanges, but the reason Poirier was so able to land leg kicks and check right hooks is because McGregor was just moving forward slowly and wanting to exchange in the pocket only. Where's the bouncing? Where's the kicking game? Where's the big movement feints? All that stuff. He needs to incorporate a whole lot more of that into his game, I think, rather than just being this guy who's going to plod forward a little bit and try to land huge punches to the head and huge punches to the head only.
And I think he is going. I think he's going to adapt. I think this could be a much different fight. I forget who said it, and this quote might not be exactly how I'm saying it, but it's tough to be a dog when you wake up in silk sheets every day, right? And I've been beating this drum since, for a while now, right? If you look at the lightweight division and you go down the list, Charles Oliveira, a dog. Justin Gaethje, dog. Michael Chandler, dog. Dustin Poirier, dog. These guys are just tough, rugged dudes that they're hard to put away. They all have losses. They've all come back from losses. Is Conor McGregor that dude anymore, right? Has he ever been that dude? And I think to survive and to thrive in this division, you have to be a dog. And I don't know if Conor McGregor is that guy anymore, or if he even was that guy. And Dustin Poirier is absolutely still that guy. And I think that could be the biggest difference in this fight.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. And we don't talk about it enough, man, because I feel like any talk around Conor McGregor is goes crazy either
It's
way.
all over
But
the place.
You bring up a good point. Was he ever that guy? And you kind of question it because I think it's safe to say, right? It's not insulting to McGregor at all. But if you look at the way he's lost the past how he lost to Poirier, how he lost to Khabib, and how he lost to Nate Diaz the first time, right? A huge part of how he loses has to do with he sprints right out the gate. He's a phenomenal starter, maybe one of the best we've ever seen in MMA. So obviously, when he falls off a cliff, he falls off hard. But it's fair to say, right? I don't think he mentally gave up, but he was easily put away in those moments, right? When Khabib got to his back, the tap was there. When Nate Diaz started to tag him on the feet, he went to his right. He panicked. I think it's fair to say McGregor's not a quitter, right? But no. He gets put away easy when things start going poorly, which is not true for Dustin Poirier at all. But the flip side, I will say, is think about Conor McGregor's fight against Chad Mendes, understood, withstood a storm. But I also think if we really look at McGregor's losses, even early on against Joe Duffy, he insta-tapped to a head and arm choke. So there is that's such a huge factor. And all those guys you said, Chandler, Oliveira, Poirier, etc., impossible to put away. Those guys have zero quit in them.
I think for Dustin, I think he would be smart in this fight to mix it up and go for some takedowns, right?
Yeah.
I think Conor was surprised by it in the first fight. I think Conor has been kind of Conor, especially going into this, it seems like he's starting to get back to like that brash, like mind games Conor. It was weird too in their second fight. Conor was so friendly and again, there's no animosity. Maybe there didn't need to be animosity, but it seemed like Conor, the switch almost turned completely the other way. And I don't know if it's the right thing for him to try to get nasty. And you see some of the stuff he's doing online and some of the stuff he's saying, and it's almost like a reach now. So I don't know how genuine it is, but I think for Poirier, it would be smart to try to take Conor down, sap some energy, get him against the cage. Because again, Dustin is built for 5 rounds of war. Is Conor? I don't know. I tend to not think so. But what's your read on at least the ground game and the takedowns for this fight?
I love the idea of Poirier mixing it up. And he did in the first fight. Saw
early too.
You saw these quotes like McGregor saying like the first to shoot's a dusty bitch. And Poirier had a great comment back that's like, that reeks of insecurity. This is MMA. How about first to get taken down as a dusty bitch? So I think Poirier will mix it up. And he has, like, throughout his career, does his best work with his hands, but he has never been afraid to lean on his wrestling if he feels like that's what he needs in the fight. And I think as he's gotten older, and I think a huge part of this has to do with his coaching, Poirier is really, really good. He used to be bad at this, at pacing himself throughout a fight. Yeah. Like, if he needs a break, he is totally fine with like pushing you against the cage and chilling there. We saw him do that against Holloway a bunch. And I think that works in his favor. So even if he doesn't get a takedown, just going for it, man. And I think if he can spend any sort of amount of time on top of McGregor, it's going to induce a bit more of a panic reaction in McGregor, which we've been talking about. Things go badly then.
Dustin has excellent chokes too. He's good from the back. He's got good front chokes. Yeah. He's got good darces, good guillotines. If he gets a tired McGregor in a front head scenario, the end could be near.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give my pick now since we're talking about it. I think this fight goes on longer because I think McGregor takes, like he did in the Diaz fight, McGregor takes his foot off the gas, makes that adjustment, but I still think this fight just fucking happened like not that long ago in January. I don't think if McGregor proves me wrong and makes adjustments, then I'm fully back in and I'm like excited about this new Conor McGregor. I don't see it happening. I see him making small adjustments, but Poirier, like we've been talking about, way more diverse weapons. And I think at this point, like you said, is much more of a dog. So I got Poirier 4th round guillotine choke. I think McGregor gets exhausted. He loses a couple rounds, finds himself against the cage, gasping for breath. Poirier locks up the guillotine that he thought he had against Khabib, but finishes it this time.
Yeah. Conor's tapping to that guillotine that he had Khabib in.
For sure. Fucking kidding me? Yeah.
That thing was tight too. That thing was really tight. Yeah. Man, I've been juggling back and forth with this one, and I might eat my words for this, but I'm gonna go Conor. There was a time where I'm trying to think of the fight. I think it was the Eddie fight, honestly. And again, I'll never pick against the Diaz brothers, so obviously I didn't pick Conor in those fights. But I think it was against Eddie Alvarez. I picked Eddie. And obviously, I think we saw probably Conor's best performance of his career. And I told myself, I was like, dude, I don't think I can pick against Conor anymore. And again, that was like prime, like Mystic Mac, like, he was that dude. He had the it factor. And I still think he has that it factor. I thought he did pretty good work against Dustin in stretches in that first fight. I still think he has power. I think Poirier can still be hurt. The thing about Poirier, he can be hurt, but his just recoverability is excellent. He's like almost like a prime Vanderlei Silva. Like Vanderlei Silva could be hurt in his prime, but it was just so hard to put him away. His recoverability was insane. That's a long-winded answer to say I'm going to go with Conor. I still think there is something there. Again, he has to finish it early because the longer it goes, I'm going to start leaning towards your pick where Dustin finishes late. So I'm going to go Conor by 2nd round stoppage. I think he flips the script. I think he hurts Poirier early. I think he is going to be a little bit more on his bike, not be so flat-footed. And I think he gets him out of there in the second. But the longer it goes, the more it's going to swing in Poirier's favor. Poirier might make me eat my words here, but I'm so excited for it. I think either way, it's just awesome. I'm really, really pumped for this fight. It is great matchmaking, and there's a lot to love here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm into it, man. And I would love to see McGregor come out with like anything resembling the kicking game that he used to have. Like Poirier has never been a great defender of kicks himself, like actually kind of a poor defender of kicks. So if he can, that's another factor. We haven't even fucking touched on McGregor's kicking game, but if he comes out and like flashes like I said, anything close, he used to throw great straight front kicks and obviously a huge fantastic wheel kick, like spinning wheel kick. But
we haven't seen it in forever. When's the last time we saw? When was the last time we saw Conor kicking? Didn't do it against Khabib. Didn't do it against Poirier. Didn't do it against Cerrone. Obviously, it's been years.
Yeah, used to be such a important part of his game, and he's gotten away from it. And man, we could break down this fight forever, but I'm excited to see what I'm going to be disappointed either way. Even if he wins, if we see McGregor come out and just all he's doing is this kind of heavy-footed boxing style.
I think if he employs that style, he's going to lose. I think he has to be on his bike, moving around, throwing kicks, like you said. He has to offset Poirier, because if he lets Poirier just walk him down, the longer the fight goes, again, it's going to spell bad news for Conor. But I'm excited to see it, man. Moving on, this co-main event is excellent as well. Kind of not getting the buzz it deserves, and maybe that's because the main event is so good. But Gilbert Burns taking on Stephen Thompson. Two former title challengers. Gilbert Burns obviously fought for a title not all that long ago. Stephen Thompson had the great 2-fight run against Tyron Woodley. Thompson is about a minus 160 favorite here. I'm actually kind of surprised it's so low. My read on this fight is this is a terrible, terrible matchup for Gilbert Burns. I think Gilbert Burns, in his career, has struggled against the better strikers he's faced. Obviously, he's a wizard on the ground. He has a lot of power, but, dude, Stephen Thompson, especially the way Stephen Thompson looked against Jeff Neal, we're talking about movement, right? Stephen Thompson is so good with his movement and so good with kicking. I think Gilbert is going to have a hard time catching Thompson. I think he's going to have a hard time catching him clean. And as far as getting him on the ground and sustaining any top pressure, I don't see it happening, man. I think Thompson should be a big favorite here, and I think he gets this done pretty handily.
Yeah, honestly, I love Gilbert Burns, but I sadly agree with like basically everything you just said. Gilbert Burns got got his face jabbed off by Kamaru Usman, who has a phenomenal jab, one of the best in the business right now. But if Kamaru Usman can do that, don't you think fucking Stephen Thompson can jab his face off too? And especially I was talking to a friend about this, and he's like, well, it's a different fight if it gets on the mat. It is, for sure. But like Stephen Thompson has been facing guys in the UFC that have been wanting to take him down since 2012. And the only guy that's been able to like successfully win by like putting him on the ground was fucking Matt Brown. Because I guess Woodley, to a degree, that the Woodley win was buoyed a lot. I should take that back. Tyron Woodley and Matt Brown have been the only two guys that have been able to like win a fight against him by putting him down. Gilbert Burns does not have that wrestling, I don't think. And like you said, I think we're going to see Stephen Thompson moving, the same Stephen Thompson we saw moving and jabbing so well against Luque and Jeff Neal. He's going to do that even more so to Gilbert Burns.
And that Matt Brown fight was all the way back 2012. So it was a long, long time ago. And Tyron Woodley, especially Tyron Woodley when he fought Stephen Thompson, much better wrestler than Gilbert Burns is. So I think Gilbert is going to struggle a lot here. I like Thompson. I like Thompson by finish. I think Gilbert is offensive enough to where he is going to put himself out there to get countered and get countered hard by Thompson. I think Thompson finishes him late in the third, and I think he stamps himself as the next title challenger. I think, honestly, Stephen Thompson, I like his style against Kamaru Usman. I think he poses a lot of problems for Usman. We've never seen it before. I think he stamps his title shot next.
Yeah, I'm with that. I do think this might be a little too much too soon for Gilbert Burns. I mean, he got beat badly, finished against Usman in February. So I mean, we're coming up on 5 months, but how much of that time was Gilbert Burns spent just like licking his wounds and getting better? I'm afraid this might be a little bit too much for him. And yeah, I could see Thompson finishing him for sure. And then yeah, that's the only title fight that makes sense at 170 because Usman has cleared out so much. Fuck Colby Covington. I don't care if he ever gets a rematch. But I think I think style wise, like at least this is a fresh fight. And if Usman wants to be the guy who can say I'm the best welterweight ever, he needs to beat a fighter like Stephen Thompson from kind of the older generation. So I would love. I think that's how it's going to shake out. I think Thompson wins here and then fights for a title.
Agreed. Moving down the card, this has to be the last hurrah in the Greg Hardy experiment, right? I'm not even sure why he is on this main card. I think there's some other fights if you look down the undercard that are better than this fight, but Greg Hardy coming off a loss to Marcin Tybura where he just gassed and got finished. I just don't think his name has produced the sort of eyeballs that the UFC wanted. And again, that I will say this about Greg Hardy. I think he's carried himself pretty well. Again, what he did, is in the past. Terrible things that he did, but I think he's carried himself pretty well. And I think he has fought some good competition, and I think he has improved. But, I mean, I don't know how much is there. And, Tai Tuivasa is fun. It should be a good stand-up war. Do you have any sort of reads on this fight, or do you even care about this fight, honestly?
The latter. I don't know if I really. I mean, I like Tai Tuivasa a whole bunch. Cannot stand Greg Hardy for obvious reasons. And I don't know. I think if anything, I mean, Greg Hardy, in terms of as an athlete, I think he's developed to be a little bit more patient, but he's like swung too far in the other way. And what we saw against Tybura was him. All right, now I got to be more aggressive. And then, like you said, he just gassed terribly. Tai Tuivasa, not like known for his cardio, but I think he could actually like approach this from like, let's stay alive in the first round and then he'll be tired in the second. But I don't know, man. Mostly I don't really care much about this fight. And I wish Ryan Hall against Iliotoporia was on the main event.
Yes.
On the main card, rather.
I agree with that 100%. We'll talk about that in a second. Rounding out the main card, Irini Aldana taking on Yanaku Nitsukaya. This fight has the potential to be an absolute war. Kunitskaya had an interesting fight in her last fight. She won the majority of her last fight, actually off of her back. She fought Ketlin Vieira. Both these ladies have beaten Ketlin Vieira recently, but I was happy that Yana Kunitskaya got the decision. I thought she deserved it. I mean, this fight should be a war. I kind of lean Kunitskaya here, but I mean, either way, I think it's going to be exciting. Don't have all that much else to say about it.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good scrap. Irini Aldana is always a joy to watch because she's like for sure one of the better boxers in that division. Maybe even the best like pure boxer in that division.
Agreed. And then rounding out the main card, Sean O'Malley taking on Chris Moutinho. Louis Smolka last week pulled out of their fight. And here's the thing, like, Smolka is an exciting fighter, but I know Chris Moutinho a bit from he's a New England guy, so I've seen him fight live before a couple times. Solid fighter. I mean, dude, going from Smolka to Moutinho, I don't think is that big of a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It's not like he went from like Marab to Chris Moutinho. You know what I'm saying? Like Smolka, Moutinho, they're probably pretty damn close to the same level. Like Moutinho's good. Again, like it sucks that it sucked in the first place that Sean O'Malley was fighting Louis Smolka. And again, that's no slight to Louis Smolka, but like, I want to see Sean O'Malley fight some of the better dudes in the division, some of the dudes with a name next to their name, right? And Ricky Simone had put his name in for this. I think that would have been a fun one, but I don't know, man. This feels like just like another fight, whether it was Louis Smolka or Chris Moutinho. I don't know.
I think you bring up a point that everybody missed. And I think they're missing kind of the forest through the trees because all these people were saying, oh, like, why didn't he accept the Ricky Simone fight? Or why didn't he accept, you saw like Tim Elliott throw his name in the hat. Why is he not fighting Marab instead? You have to look at his original opponent, and his original opponent was Louis Smokle.
Yes.
So that's what people are missing. It's like, of course he's not going to fight Ricky Simone or Marab, because like that's not the type of fighter or the level of fighter he was training for. He was training for Louis Smokle at this point in his career, or Chris Moutinho. So people are missing, like, people were shocked when Chris, like, oh my God, why are they giving him a debut fighter? It's like, do you realize his original opponent was like a guy has not looked anything like himself for the past like 3 years, been
Yeah.
in and out of the UFC, and is like a natural flyweight. Like, I don't know. I'm happy that Chris Moutinho, I saw him fight at CES like way back in like 2017 maybe. So I'm happy to see him make it. He's a good fighter.
I agree. He's a good fighter. It should be a solid fight. But again, like we said, like, don't put the blinders on. It's not like he went from fighting the number 5 guy in the division to a debuting fighter. You know, he was fighting probably the same level of guy. You know, I wish he was in there against a Marab, or, you know, Cody Stamen would have even been a better name. I saw someone mention this on Twitter the other day. Let me get your opinion on this. I don't think we're there yet, but do you think Sean O'Malley can turn into the UFC's version of MVP? Oh, you saw that tweet too, huh?
Yeah. I mean, if they only give him, I mean, that is how they're treating him. It's a fair comparison, because they're only giving him like good stylistic matchups, but continue to like kind of trot him out as like the next big thing, like the man. But like clearly he is not. I mean, even the good stylistic matchups that he won, some of those, like the Andre Sukumtop fight, he didn't look great, right? He like destroyed his leg in that fight. You know, fighting Eddie Wineland, a guy who's like so far in the tail end of his career and has no takedowns in him whatsoever. Like, yeah, he's never going to fight a Cody Stamen or a Marab, guys that can consistently put him on his butt. If that's the case, if he never does, like, if he's never fought, given those guys on the way up, then for sure, I think the MVP comparison is like pretty fucking spot on.
Yeah, I agree. Really quick, let's shoot down to these prelims, because there's a lot to like on it. I gotta say, dude, I really like Carlos Condit versus Max Griffin. Condit is on a 2-fight win streak, and I think after Matt Brown's performance a couple of weeks ago, that Matt Brown win looks a lot better for Carlos Condit. You know, Max Griffin, I think, has been getting better with age. He's kind of been up and down, but he's on a 2-fight win streak himself. I think this could be a lot of fun. Always good to see Carlos Condit back in there. Dude, Nico Price, Michel Pereira. I mean,
that's good.
It's going to be hard to wrestle fight of the night away from those two guys.
That is great matchmaking. That's kind of fallen under the radar. I feel like I never watch those videos where Dana White is like yelling in front of a whiteboard about fights to watch. But I assume,
check this one out.
Yeah, he's like, this Nico Price, Michel Pereira, it's gonna be awesome. Like, I never watch those, but I assume, like, I've seen clips. I assume he's gonna circle that one, and like rightfully so.
I was gonna say he's like Guy Fieri from. Oh, look, that's the boat. You know what I'm saying?
Actually, I'm sure those two images have been photoshopped together, like Dana Fieri. I would love that.
Dude, honestly, outside of the main event, Ryan Hall versus Iliotoporia is the fight I'm looking forward to most. Again, like, I've been a big fan, and I'm sure you have been as well, of Ryan Hall back from like the early jiu-jitsu days. You know, Ryan Hall developed the 50-50 game. He's been leg locking dudes since like Grappling Industries in 2003. You know, the sad thing is, like, his MMA career has almost been like an enigma, right? Like, every time he fights, he's got this very, very weird style. You just don't see it enough. You know, he won the Ultimate Fighter back in 2015. He's fought 3 times since then against Gray Maynard, BJ Penn, and Darren Elkins. We just have not seen a lot of him. He's now 6 years old, and he's 36. Taken on Iliotoporia, who is an absolute stud. What is your read on this fight?
I think first of all, we should say I think he's a really young 36. Even his jiu-jitsu style is pretty easy on his body. So I know he's had injuries lately, and that's been a big part of why we haven't seen him since fucking 2 years, July of 2019.
Yeah.
Injuries, coronavirus, other injuries to his opponents, etc. I don't know, man, because like my read on this fight, like you said, Ryan Hall is a fucking enigma, and I love it. I love that he's kind of the same. He's different sides of the same coin of him and Ben Askren to a degree, right?
Yeah.
Something I loved about Ben Askren is that he like did it his own way, and
Yes.
he was not going to do it anybody else. He knew what he was good at. That's all I care about. And I feel like Ryan Hall is that guy. Like, I'm going to fucking throw wheel kicks and Imanari roll. And that's all that matters. And if you can try to stop that or try to do anything about it, I'd like to see you try. So I don't know, man. I think to get a read on this fight, I don't feel like I have a strong read on who Iliotoporia is, other than like a super hot prospect. You see that win over Youssef Zalal. That's hella impressive because
Yes, it
Youssef
is.
Zalal is also like a super hot prospect. I don't know, man. I assume like it's hard to break down any Ryan Hall fight because you would say, well, if it stays on the feet for any extended period of time, of course, Ryan Hall's losing. But that has not been true because guys are so terrified of getting close to him that they can't mount any
Can't open
offensive
up,
striking game of their own.
And, Ryan Hall's not the guy that's out there shooting blast doubles and putting you against the fence. You know what I'm saying? He's entering via, like, Imanari rolls, and he's not afraid to jump guard. And so he can get to the top position or get to your back from so many different weird ways that you're probably not seeing in training camp. But, I mean, Iliotoporia is a very dynamic striker, so I love it. I'm really, really interested in this fight.
I need to look more into Topuria. On his Tapology, it says he's training under, or at least at one point trained at the MMA Masters gym. But I'd be curious to see who is he grappling with to try to prepare for this.
Yeah, who's he bringing in? I have no idea.
This does kind of feel like, I know he technically has more fights than Ryan Hall, but this feels like a young, undefeated guy is about to get that surprise submission loss because he's fighting like a grappler specialist, like one of the best in the world.
I'm picking Ryan Hall by rear naked choke. I think he's gonna.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna enter some weird leg thing, sweep, get on top, get to his back, choke him out.
I'm into that. I bet I could see Ryan Hall's now gonna be fighting guys that are terrified of his leg game and they have really good leg defense, but then they don't realize there's layers to this shit, and Ryan Hall uses that to get to your back.
Yeah, agreed. Any other fights you're looking forward to on this prelim card?
Let me see here. I mean, we named most of the ones that I'm most interested in. I guess Jennifer Maya, Jessica I, is that a relevant fight? I assume. Like, does that? Not that I'm particularly excited about that, but should I be watching? Yeah, because it's like there's no contenders there. I don't know anything. I don't know about this Dricus Duplessis guy. Did you talk about him on the prelim primer?
We will be. Yeah, that's a pretty fun fight. I think Trevin Giles is actually a guy that has been pretty underrated in his career. I'm pretty pumped about that fight. I think that fight is probably going to produce a finish either way. And again, I do like Trevin Giles. Omari Akhmedov, Brad Tavares could be good. This guy Hugh Yazong has, I believe, I got to look at my notes, but has like 3 fights and hasn't fought in like 2 or 3 years. So it's kind of weird that he's getting a, you want to complain about, you want to complain about debuts. Like this guy hasn't fought in forever.
Well, he's 3-2, 0-2 in the UFC.
Yeah, exactly.
And he hasn't fought since November 2018. What the fuck?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy, right? Crazy.
Yeah.
So
weird.
We'll see, man. He's an interesting one. And you were talking before. There was a couple fights we wanted to talk about before we get out of here. I think.
Oh yeah, we should. This is a pants off fight. Edson Barboza and Giga Chikadze, I feel like, is something that deserves our immediate attention.
Yes. 2 things in this fight. Props to Edson Barboza, who's coming off a very impressive win, to take a fight against Giga Chikadze, because Chikadze's only ranked, what, like 13th or 14th in the division, something like that. And for Chikadze, like, I'm glad that he is getting a step up. He's been calling all these guys out. But again, when you got a number 13 next to your name, not a lot of guys in that top 5 are going to say yes to you. So props to both of these guys for making this fight happen. It is a main event. Dude, it's going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah, like fucking perfect matchmaking, I feel like. And Barboza, you and I, maybe you, I feel like I definitely doubted him at featherweight, but dude, I'm in.
Yeah.
He's looking better. Like maybe actually going down in weight gave him a bit of a new life in his career. So that's like, sometimes the UFC really drops the ball with their matchmaking, but sometimes they hit something that's just right. Yeah. And I feel like they fucking nailed it with that one.
Absolutely.
Another fight that got announced, Kevin Holland against Kyle Daukaus, which is Kevin Holland has a ton to lose. I know we've been saying that a while, but like Kyle Daukaus is legit. I think he might be I don't know if he's as good as the heavyweight Daukaus brother, but he's a guy who could like submit Kevin Holland. This is a really risky fight for Kevin Holland, going from like that stretch where he was like basically 2020's fighter of the year to looking real bad. So I don't know. I'm tuned in for that fight for sure. I like Kevin Holland. Yeah.
And I like that Kevin Holland took the proper time off to take a fight too. He took months off. I believe this fight is October 2nd. So I'm glad, and I'm excited to see how he looks. I think both of the Daukaus brothers are very good. Again, like you said, excellent matchmaking.
Yeah, I'm into it. I'm trying to see if there's any. I think that was we touched on all the big.
I got
like fight announcements. Go for it.
Bellator announced that Fedor is going to be coming back. They are going to be doing an event in Russia. I don't think they officially announced that this will be Fedor's retirement fight, but obviously we're getting close to there. Do you have any, like, who do you want to see Fedor fight for this fight?
Well, I wouldn't mind this one. Fabricio Verdum threw his name in the hat, and at least there has been signs that Verdum is obviously not in the PFL playoffs, so he has no obligation to them. And I think those two sides are open to letting, like, somebody in the PFL I know has indicated that they would let Verdum go and fight one off in Bellator. So I think that's on the table. I saw Jake Hager calling for that fight. No. Don't want that. No. Don't want that. I don't know, man.
That's like the one I do not want. Jake Hager doesn't, and I have no problem with Jake Hager. I love the phoner thing and the I'm rock hard with emotion. I love it, but dude, he does not deserve to fight Fedor, especially Fedor. I think is in such a vulnerable point in his career. Don't want to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I would, as long as it's another veteran or somebody at the tail end. I don't know what were you gonna say?
I'll give you one. Anderson Silva.
Would watch in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anderson Silva, dude. I mean, they both have the pride ties. Two of the biggest names in the sport. Again, Silva's old, but had that awesome boxing win. I think honestly, that would be my number one. Overeem would be another good name. Mm-hmm. I do like the Verdum rematch, but for me, I like Anderson Silva.
Yeah. The only thing about, I'm not excited about an Overeem fight because I feel like Overeem would maybe toast him, and I don't want to see Fedor, like, even if he loses, which I don't want to see as like a Fedor long time fan. Even if he loses, I don't want him to I want him to like let Verdum submit him again or something. I don't fucking care. I don't want to see him
go out there and just get roasted and
get blasted. And I'm afraid that's what Overeem would do to him at this point in his career.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Honestly, I think we covered it all, skimming through. You got anything else, dude?
I think that's it. I feel like we touched on everything. I mean, we'll be picking up. We should maybe bring a guest on or something for Antonio McKee and Pitbull, which is coming up soon.
This month, baby, finally.
At the end of July. So get pumped. Longtime listeners or watchers of our show will know that we've been clamoring for this fight forever. So I'm getting excited about that.
Yeah, dude. Me too. So enjoy the fights this weekend. Please give us a follow. Hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to the podcast. We are all over the place. YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes. We appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you all soon.
No escape, can you step to this? Face the pace.